Hello and welcome to another edition of the Tigers Down Under. We've got another cracking win to talk about. It's almost an annual event these days against Liverpool, with a great win against them. And with me to talk about that, I have both Logan and Dan back for a second bite. I'll start with you, Dan. It was a fantastic win against Liverpool on the weekend. What did you make of it?
Oh, it was great to watch. You can see what Silva's put in already. Like the great defensive display, didn't give them any time on the ball, and we finally managed to make our attacks count. We didn't have many opportunities, and we haven't throughout the season. But our biggest thing has been we haven't been putting the goals away when we've got the opportunity, and we managed to do that on the weekend with two really good goals.
Yeah, Logan, Dan's touched on there. We really took our chance as well, and obviously Nias getting his first Premier League goal would be pretty exciting to him for a couple of reasons, particularly as an Everton loanee. So what did you make of the goals?
Yeah, I thought obviously the first one was very scrappy, but I think it was kind of if you have got any criticism of Hernandez, is sometimes he is sometimes a little bit polite with going in for challenges, and I thought that in all honesty, his challenge on Mignolet to kind of really contest that ball obviously opened it up for Ndiaye to put away quite easily. So, in many respects, I would hand Hernandez a very important assist, which kind of got the ball rolling. And then, obviously, Nias's goal was just, it's just something we're not used to seeing at City with the long ball over the top and kind of blasting away with pace and then a pretty tidy finish. So, the goals were fantastic. I guess you'll kind of take any goal against Liverpool, but in both the manner that they came, it kind of was somewhat surprising.
And yeah, joining a list of quite a few City players who've scored on their debut. I mean, I can think in recent years, just off the top of my head, I mean, we had Hernandez scoring on debut against West Ham, along with Diame, who also scored in that match, and then Klukas and Akpom against Huddersfield last season. But the one in particular, Ndoye scoring on debut against Villa, he'd probably be the last player I can remember who, as you touched on there, Logan, the ball over the top with the pace to run through and slot away a goal, because I seem to remember him doing that at least against Palace. He might have done it for one of his other goals as well. But Jelavic as well was another one that season who was quite good with those balls late in games. But yeah, we've certainly lacked that pace in recent times, and especially able to kill off games late in the piece. The other interesting thing I picked up from that first goal was the fact we had two players standing at the corner routine. And whilst looking at highlights of Olympiacos' win against Arsenal from last year, I saw that Olympiacos actually did that against Arsenal at one point as well. So perhaps it's a Silva trademark. What did you make of the tactics, Dan?
I think it's always good. I don't mind having a couple of people around any dead ball. It just throws a little bit of doubt into as a defender. You're not sure whether it's going to be swinging in, swinging out, whether it's just adds that extra little thing about whether they're going to go short, go long, where it's going to go. And Grosicki's delivery was perfect. He just he hit the right area, got it just in the right thing where Mignolet, he had to come for it, but it wasn't exactly in a comfortable spot for him, so just enough pressure from Hernandez forced the spill. But there was a lot to like about the game on the weekend.
Another deadline day signing who we've touched on in that previous podcast, who wasn't even meant to start this game, was Andrea Ranocchia, who came in late for Dawson, and he put in a pretty decent shift as well. Obviously getting the assist late for Nias as well. So what did you make of his game, Logan?
I thought it was really interesting to see the way he performed, particularly after the kind of feedback that was coming in from Italy, particularly the Inter fans. How it was he was a dodgy defender. I think I even read at one stage the worst defender in Italy, and it kind of was somewhat ominous signs that we bought ourselves a lemon. But to come under that kind of pressure, particularly when he obviously didn't intend to be starting, but obviously there was the Dawson injury in the warm up. For him to come out and produce the performance that he did, obviously with very little time to kind of gel with his defensive partner in Maguire, I thought he had a spectacular game. He looked very strong in the air as predicted. But he just seemed to have that poise about him, and obviously the assist for Nias was incredibly special. But just given the manner of his performance, given the circumstances on debut, it was just it was hugely positive signs and great to watch.
And it's now 2 clean sheets in a row, which is pretty remarkable after we hadn't managed one since August, in the league at least. But that leads into a broader discussion of Silva's impact. He's now been here for roughly a month. There was a great article in the Hull Daily Mail the other day from Phil Buckingham about his training methods and his tactics and his impact on the club in his time since he's been here. I'll start with you, Dan. What are the main things you'd say you've noticed about the way the team's changed under Silva?
We've stopped shipping goals for starters. Like, I think it's clear that, like, I mean, there was the first few days the reports came in that, you know, of him grabbing Michael Dawson and moving him into a position on the training pitch and stuff. And like your most experienced defender in the squad who's been playing in the Premier League for years and years, you wouldn't really expect a new manager to come in and say, "You're in the wrong spot, mate. You need to be over here." But he's doing it and it's working. He's got everyone knowing exactly what their job is, and Huddleston's come out and said it, and Klukas has come out and said it, that, you know, they're putting lots of hours in, lots of tactical work on the field, lots of video footage and stuff off the field, and, you know, all the team bonding and stuff. But I think he's just put a big focus on every player knowing their role, and that's it. They need to know where they need to be in any given situation, and I think that makes it really easy to play. Once you know, I only need to worry about what I have to do, and everyone else will take care of their jobs. It makes it a lot easier to play as a team and play the way we're starting to perform.
As you say, I mean, the team's certainly gelling as a unit, and I found something quite interesting in that article was the mention of the fact that the players turn up at the KCOM a couple of hours early, they then get on a bus together, they go to a hotel, they have a meal, they find out what the 11 is, they get their last minute instructions from Silva, and then they come to the game all together on a bus, which, from the sounds of things, a few of the bigger clubs do already. And it's to sort of create this sense of unity amongst the group, which I find quite interesting because it's almost replicating the atmosphere of an away game when, you know, traditionally thinking you would think that anything that could create the home comforts of a home game would actually benefit the players. But what do you make of that tactic, Logan, which seems to clearly be working?
I think it's a very interesting one, but I think it's probably got a lot to do with the kind of total club overhaul. With changing just the simple practices like that, I feel like there was somewhat a bit of a stalemate when Steve Bruce left the club. And if there was any kind of criticism of Mike Phelan, is he obviously came in and changed a few things, but in many ways would have kept, I guess, many of the habitual kind of training methods that perhaps Steve Bruce used. So in the sense that Marco Silva's come in, and also in that article it mentioned things like nutrition and how he banned all the desserts off the menu.
Is staying up really worth it if they can't have their apple crumble? I don't know.
Well, I think if I'm to be perfectly honest, it kind of changes the mentality of if there was any criticism of Steve Bruce, he was probably a championship manager who did a very, very good job in the championship, and then we always used to speculate, would he be the man that would lead us in the Premier League? I think that the kind of methods that we're seeing with the changes Silva's brought in obviously have kind of made a different stance on the way that City approach things, and subtle things like how they arrive at games, how they eat meals together, what they eat, the intensity of training sessions. I think that is probably a large reason as to why the kind of golfing class seems to have changed more from a traditional defensively sound championship team to a Premier League team that has that defensive result but also can hurt teams.
Well, it's 4 wins in a row now at home in all competitions against Swansea, Bournemouth, United and Liverpool, which is certainly quite impressive. And whilst we've got Arsenal away from home next, we've got a pretty important run of games after that in which there'll be a few home games that we can eye the 3 points out of. And as Dan touched on, only 3 goals conceded now in the last 4 games in the league under Marco Silva is certainly pretty impressive as well. So... Sorry, 3 goals conceded in the last 4 games. Yeah, so that's certainly another impressive stat as well. But we'll look ahead now to that Arsenal game, which is at the Emirates. we've only had the one win over them at the Emirates in recent times, or at all really, in that 2-1 victory, thanks to Giovanni and Kuzan back in 2008, which kind of set the ball rolling in many senses for our surge up the table that season. I'll start with you, Dan, on what your thoughts are on this game.
I think it's going to be a big game, and I'm like, this game is not going to define our season, but it's still going to be a big game. I think we're really going to push Arsenal this weekend. I've watched them the last couple of weeks. I watched them against Chelsea on the weekend, and I'm going to be honest. Chelsea's going to make a good team look bad, but they really did make Arsenal look pretty average. If Bellerin looks like he's going to be out, and it's a big blow for them. But yeah, I can see us, if we put in a similar performance to what we've done the last couple of weeks at Manchester United, against Manchester United, against Liverpool. Like, there's no reason we can't come away with at the very least a point. But it will be interesting to see the lineup that Silva chooses this weekend. That's for sure.
Well, as Dan's touched on there, there's some doubt over Dawson whether he'll line up. We don't really know the extent of that injury. And also El Mohammadi back from the AFCON, where his side went down in the final to Cameroon. Logan, how do you see the game shaping up under Silva, who obviously got the win there last season with Olympiacos, as I touched on before, and how you see him maybe altering the lineup?
It's going to be a very interesting one. I think, in my opinion, I believe Arsenal are probably the next best team in the Premier League, apart from Chelsea. And I think that they still do have a level that perhaps Liverpool and maybe even Manchester United cannot get to. I think if Arsenal turn up, we'll struggle to beat them. And it'll be very interesting given the fact that they're coming off the Watford loss and obviously the Chelsea loss that was mentioned before. So as far as picking the score goes, or having a real...
well, you're the Nostradamus these days, aren't you?
Yeah, coming off two correct picks, but I can't really, in all honesty, see how this one's gonna end up. And I would love to say that we take a point, but how Silva approaches that game is going to be very interesting. I think it will be very similar to the Liverpool tactics. I think that there will be a lot more possession, obviously, with Arsenal, and I think that we will need to be extremely resolute in the way that we defend, in the manner, with the kind of high energy in their face approach that we've taken. But in saying that, these days, with the pace that we have at our disposal, we can hurt teams on the counter. So, it's anyone's game, and I think that that'll probably be the way that the Silva approaches the game. As far as lineup goes, obviously the Dawson injury that you mentioned, where it'll be touch and go to see whether he's back or whether it's even worth risking him. Obviously Markovic, it comes back into contention, and then Mbukani and El Mohammadi as well back from the AFCON. So I think that those two probably will struggle to find their way into the team, given the fact that they have just come off a major tournament. But,
interestingly as well, one of the loanees will miss out on the squad altogether, the matchday squad that is, because of the fact that you can only have the 5 loanees in the matchday squad.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And you just struggle to find one of the loanees at the moment, with the exception of perhaps Markovic, because he didn't play last week against Liverpool, that there'd be enough grounds to leave on the sidelines for a week.
Absolutely, and interestingly enough, our record at the Emirates has been okay in recent years. It seems as if the away team in these fixtures generally does better, because Arsenal seems to rule the roost at the KCOM, but I can remember, for instance, in 14-15 we went there and we got that 2-2 draw where, if not for a pretty late goal, we would have actually ended up winning the game. So we've had okay results there recently, even the 0-0 in the FA Cup the year after. So it'll certainly be an interesting one, and I'll start with you, Dan, and just get your score predictions.
I'm going to go 2-1 to City.
I'm liking the confidence there. And how about you, Logan?
I'd love to get this one right to make it 3 in a row, but I think that it'll probably be 2-1 to Arsenal, regrettably.
And I think I'll split the middle and I'll go 1-1 draw in this one. I think we can keep our run going of picking up points. I think it'll be a competitive game, and it'll be quite interesting to see how Arsenal back up from their pretty poor loss to Chelsea whilst we're backing up in pretty good wins. So it'll be interesting to see how Silva manages the squad. Obviously, this is the longest break he's had between games as manager, so he probably thinks we've been given a pretty decent holiday at this rate. So he'll have time to get his messages across to the players and the formation and the structures right. So it'll certainly be an interesting one to watch. And we'll just finish off before signing off with a new segment where we're going to look each week at a different player in the squad. I thought we'd start this week with a look at David Meyler as just a player who splits the fan base pretty drastically. Some will say that he loses the ball too much and he's a bit of a dead weight in midfield at times, but others will say he grafts well, he breaks up play, he's all that you need out of a hard-working midfielder. So Meyler signed for us back on loan in 2012, in November 2012, on just a short-term loan. At the time, it was an emergency loan, which I think doesn't exist anymore. But he surprisingly actually started his time with us pretty prolifically. I mean, he scored 3 goals while he was on loan, and then scored a further 2 goals after signing permanently. And since then, he's had a pretty decent penchant for scoring pretty important goals. He's scored against Liverpool in that 3-1 win against them in 13-14. He also scored the second, I believe, against United in that same month, before scoring in a 1-1 draw with Man City the following season. And he also scored in the semi-final of the Cup against Sheffield United and the quarter-final against Sunderland. So he seems to score pretty important goals for us. And another quirky stat that I'd noted with a tweet earlier this week was I think he's our only player to have been involved in all 3 wins over Liverpool in the league. So I'll start with you, Logan. What are your thoughts on David Meyler and his time with City?
Very good question. I think David Meyler is, in many ways, he kind of summarises what City is all about, in the sense that we probably, in many aspects, kind of lack that finesse that many of the kind of bigger clubs seem to offer. I remember a stat when he first came to the club. I think we'd played like 9 or 10 games, and whenever he'd been in the squad, City hadn't lost. And I found that incredibly interesting when I was reading it, because I thought, what's he actually offering? And then, as you said, the important goals that he has contributed to, he certainly knows how to celebrate them. The one against, well, I vividly remember when he ran over to kick the corner flag down, which was incredibly impressive to watch. And obviously you mentioned the Man City goal. So my memories of David Meyler are he does pop up and score big goals. He does create some incredibly questionable mistakes, but you know that he will never let you down as far as effort goes, and seems to kind of have these moments of absolute class where he'll score incredible goals. So I think that he's been very important to the makeup of what Hull City have been about the last few years.
I think if I had to contrast my favourite and least favourite memories of him, least favourite, as you've touched on in terms of mistakes, was probably in that FA Cup FA Cup game, I should say, against Arsenal where we lost 4-0, where I think he basically set up Giroud for the first goal with a beautiful cutback across the goal. But favourite memory, I mean, he was involved in that bust-up with Alan Pardew and managed to score a week later against Sunderland in the Cup and celebrated by headbutting the corner flag, I should say. So, as you say, he has a good eye for celebrations from goals. But Dan, what are your thoughts on David Meyler and his time with City so far?
Look, I like David Meyler. And like as Logan pointed out, he does sort of he fits the mold of like what the club's been about for a while. He's not the classiest player. He doesn't always make the right decisions, but he does just give it a go. He's always like, I mean, you look at the last few weeks, he's not a natural right back, but he was preferred for a couple of weeks over Al Abdullah as a starter. Like, obviously, like, he's not a terrible player. He's just, sometimes he has his little moments, like we all do. But I think he has been an important part of the squad since he's joined. As you pointed out, he's been involved in some of the big moments, and the memorable moments that we've experienced over the last few seasons. I don't know. I do like him, but he is inconsistent. Would be my choice word to describe Meyler. And
I think maybe as a good stat to close off with on Meyler, he is now our second we're in the current squad. He's our second top scorer. Not for this season, but for his entire time at the club. I think Hernandez is obviously first, and then David Meyler in second. So, as a player that doesn't come across as a goal-scoring mid, he just seems to be sort of that workhorse in midfield, kind of like a Huddleston or a Livermore. He actually has quite a bit of an eye for goals. So, long may that continue for the club, and long may that continue, especially this season. Hopefully, he can get a few on the board in this fight towards survival. So, I'll thank you both for coming on. Thanks, Logan.
Not a problem.
And thanks as well, Dan.
No worries, anytime.
Thanks everyone for listening in. Hopefully we can continue this great run under Silva and get another win against Arsenal on the weekend. And until next time, come on City! You've been listening to the official Hull City Australia podcast. For more discussion, join us on Facebook in the Hull City AFC Australian Supporters Group, or follow us on Twitter at Hull City AFC Oz. The music was created by Amber and Black.
There's no turning back 'cause you're out.